The women's 1,500 meters final became far more than a simple championship race. It evolved into a psychological war where patience, positioning, rhythm, and courage mattered just as much as physical strength. From the very beginning, the tension inside the stadium felt different. Every athlete on the start line understood the importance of this moment. In races like this, one decision can define an entire career. One perfectly timed move can create history, while one mistake can erase months or even years of preparation. As the gun fired, nobody wanted to immediately take control of the pace. That alone revealed how much respect existed between the athletes. In modern championship 1,500-meter racing, the opening laps are often more dangerous when the tempo is slow because uncertainty creates chaos. A fast race usually stretches the field naturally and rewards pure endurance. A tactical race forces athletes into uncomfortable situations where positioning becomes a constant battle. During the opening lap, the entire field stayed compressed together. Elbows nearly touched, spikes clipped dangerously close behind one another, and every runner fought to secure space without wasting unnecessary energy. The leaders were cautious, almost calculating every stride. Nobody wanted to expose themselves too early to the wind. Nobody wanted to become the athlete responsible for increasing the pace and giving others the perfect opportunity to draft behind them. That hesitation transformed the race into a chess match. Athletes near the front constantly glanced over their shoulders, aware of the danger surrounding them. Those in the middle of the pack searched for gaps that barely existed. Meanwhile, runners trapped near the back faced another problem entirely, because the slower the pace became, the more difficult it was to launch a clean attack later in the race. This is what makes Championship 1,500 meters so unique. The event sits directly between middle-distance speed and long-distance endurance. Athletes must combine the explosiveness of an 800-meter runner with the tactical awareness of a distance specialist. Pure fitness alone rarely guarantees victory in races like this. Timing becomes everything. As the second lap developed, the tension only increased. Several athletes attempted subtle surges, not necessarily to break the field apart, but to test reactions. These small accelerations forced everyone else to make rapid decisions. Should they respond immediately and risk burning energy, or remain patient and trust their finishing speed later? That uncertainty created visible stress across the field. Some runners drifted slightly wider to avoid being boxed in. Others aggressively protected the inside lane because surrendering position at this stage could become disastrous during the final lap. Every meter carried importance. One of the most fascinating aspects of the race was how disciplined many of the favorites remained despite the tactical chaos. Experienced championship athletes understand that panic destroys rhythm. Instead of reacting emotionally to every movement, they focused on conserving energy while maintaining contact with the leaders. Their body language revealed calmness, even while the race itself felt unstable. At the halfway point, the pace still had not fully exploded. For spectators, this only increased the anticipation because everyone inside the stadium knew what was coming. A slow, tactical 1,500 almost always produces a devastating final lap. The athletes were essentially storing energy for one massive explosion later in the race. Meanwhile, competitors positioned near the back faced growing pressure. In championship racing, being too far behind before the bell lap can become fatal. Even the strongest kickers struggle when forced to navigate traffic at maximum speed. This is why positioning during the third lap became increasingly aggressive. Several runners began inching forward before the final 500 meters, attempting to secure clear running space before the inevitable sprint started. Those subtle movements often decide medals long before the finish line itself. To casual viewers, they may appear insignificant. To elite athletes, they represent survival. Then the race entered its decisive phase. With roughly 400 meters remaining, the entire rhythm changed instantly. The gradual tactical battle disappeared, replaced by pure aggression. Athletes who had spent laps conserving energy suddenly unleashed everything. The acceleration was violent. What looked controlled moments earlier became absolute chaos. The leaders attacked first, trying to stretch the field before the final straight. Immediately, others responded. The pack compressed even tighter as multiple athletes attempted to move simultaneously. Arms pumped harder. Strides lengthened dramatically. The sound inside the stadium intensified with every second. At this stage of a championship 1,500, fatigue becomes overwhelming. Lactic acid floods the legs. Breathing becomes desperate, and mental strength becomes just as important as physical condition. Yet despite the exhaustion, the athletes continued accelerating. One runner attempted to surge from the outside lane, gambling on momentum rather than position. Another protected the rail aggressively, refusing to surrender even a centimeter of space. Behind them, several others searched desperately for openings as the race reached maximum intensity. The bell lap transformed the final into a survival test. What made this race extraordinary was the sheer number of athletes still in contention deep into the closing stages. Usually, one or two runners establish clear separation before the final straight. Here, the field remained unbelievably compact. That meant every mistake became magnified. One clipped heel or moment of hesitation could instantly destroy medal hopes. Coming around the final bend, the crowd realized they were witnessing something unforgettable. Multiple athletes launched their finishing kicks almost simultaneously. The leaders leaned forward with everything remaining in their bodies. Faces showed pure strain. Shoulders tightened. Arms drove violently through the air. The final straight looked almost unreal. Instead of one dominant athlete pulling away, the runners remained nearly level. Each stride altered the medal positions. One athlete briefly appeared to take control, only for another to respond immediately. The momentum shifted repeatedly over the final meters. This is the brutal beauty of the 1,500 meters. The event rewards athletes capable of suffering while still making intelligent decisions under extreme pressure. Sprint too early, and the legs collapse before the finish. Wait too long, and the race disappears before momentum fully develops. The final meters became pure desperation. Every athlete leaned aggressively toward the line, searching for fractions of a second. In championships, careers are often separated by hundredths. The difference between gold and missing the podium can be smaller than a single stride. As they crossed the finish line, confusion immediately erupted. Even experienced commentators struggled to identify the winner in real time because the finish was unbelievably close. Athletes collapsed onto the track, completely emptied from the effort. Some looked toward the scoreboard anxiously, while others simply tried to recover their breath. Inside the stadium, spectators replayed the final moments repeatedly on giant screens. The margins were so small that many fans initially disagreed about the finishing order. Social media exploded almost instantly because the conclusion looked almost impossible at full speed. But beyond the dramatic finish itself, the race exposed the deeper reality of elite middle-distance running. Championship 1,500-meter racing is not only about physical talent, it is about emotional control. Athletes must remain patient during slow laps, brave enough to fight for position, intelligent enough to read the race correctly, and explosive enough to deliver maximum speed after already running near exhaustion. Very few events demand such a complete combination of skills. This final also highlighted how global women's middle distance running has evolved in recent years. The depth of talent continues to increase dramatically. Athletes from multiple nations now enter major finals believing they can realistically compete for victory. That competitive balance creates races filled with uncertainty and tactical complexity. No athlete could afford even a brief mental lapse here. Every runner on the track possessed elite closing speed. Every athlete carried the ability to punish hesitation. Another important element was how efficiently the leaders handled energy distribution throughout the race. In tactical finals, wasted movement becomes incredibly dangerous. Drifting too wide on bends, responding unnecessarily to minor surges, or fighting too aggressively for position can drain critical energy needed later. The eventual medalists managed those details brilliantly. Even under chaos, they maintained enough composure to execute their strategies when the decisive moment arrived. At the same time, the race demonstrated the cruelty of championship athletics. Several athletes delivered extraordinary performances, yet still left disappointed simply because the margins were microscopic. In many other races, their finishing times or final kicks might have earned medals comfortably. Here, the competition level was simply too high. That reality is what makes these finals unforgettable. The pressure creates drama that no scripted event could ever reproduce. Every athlete arrives carrying years of sacrifice, preparation, injuries, setbacks, and expectations. Then everything gets decided in less than 4 minutes. For viewers, races like this become instant classics because they capture every emotional element of sport simultaneously. Suspense, fear, confidence, desperation, courage, relief, heartbreak. The women's 1,500 meters final delivered all of it. Even after the race ended, the debates continued. Fans discussed whether someone attacked too early, whether another athlete waited too long, or whether positioning during the final bend ultimately decided the outcome. That is the mark of a truly great championship race. People continue analyzing it long after the medals are awarded. Most importantly, this final reminded the world why athletics remains one of the purest forms of competition. There are no substitutions, no timeouts, and no hiding places. Once the race begins, every athlete must solve the challenge alone in real time while carrying enormous physical and mental pressure. The women's 1,500 meters final was not simply about who ran fastest. It was about who handled chaos best, who trusted their instincts, who embraced the pressure instead of fearing it. And in the end, that combination produced one of the most thrilling finishes the sport has seen in years.